This is How To Scotty, and welcome to my workshop, or at least the beginnings of it. Right now, I'm up in beautiful Minnesota. Just moved there from out of west, so I'm in a nice cold environment right now. If you see any steam coming from my mouth, you know that it's kind of cold in my workshop. Basically, this is my garage, and what I plan on doing here today is I'm going to start building another workbench. I do have one small one, but I need another workbench to get this shop complete. I'm going to use this area to show you folks different projects I'm going to make. I'm going to make different tables, I'm going to make different things for around the house, make things for fishing, things for outdoors. I mean, a lot of different projects. But today I need a workbench to get started with it. So I'm going to make a nice, basic workbench about 6 feet long using my table saw. I have a radial arm saw over here, which you don't see, and some other hand tools. These will be just basic hand tools, drills, circular saws, jigsaws, stuff like that. The stuff that you should have around the house. The circular or the radial arm saw, you may not. Table saw, you probably will. I'm going to be using both of those in this project today. May shoot this over several days, depending on how warm I can stay out here. Right now it's probably a nice cool 15 degrees in this garage, so it's a bit chilly. So let's get started today with the project. I'm going to make the dimensions. It's going to be, I want to make it to the height of this table saw, because I'd like to be able to put the table saw on the end of it if I have to do any real long pieces of wood, plywood or whatever to cut. So I'm going to make the table saw, and this is, the top of this saw is 34 3/4 inches tall, which for me is a pretty good workbench height for doing stuff. It's not too tall, not too low. That's, like Mama Papa Bear says, just right. So we'll get started. A lot of my tools are nice old vintage tools. Been hunting all the different Craigslist ads and pawn shops and thrift stores and stuff to find good tools. Just because it's old doesn't mean it isn't good. You just always got to make sure that the thing works properly, and you're not going to have it catch on fire or anything. So test it out first before you do it. In my workshop right now, like I said, I've got this Rockwell table saw. I have a Craftsman table saw. You should be able to see the radial arm saw that I have. See if I can move this around a bit. I have a Craftsman radial arm saw. I have a Craftsman contractor table saw. I have over here a small band saw. You can kind of see that. So I need areas to set all this stuff on. Over here is my beauty, which I will not use until it warms up a little bit more. This is my Mark V Shopsmith, and that will do all kinds of fun stuff. I also have another lathe besides the Shopsmith lathe, and I'll be doing different types of canes, walking sticks, table legs, you name it. That Shopsmith will do all kinds of stuff. The table saw I'm using out here is a Rockwell 9-inch. That's kind of an odd size one, but I was able to pick up a nice saw blade off of it for a song, off of eBay for a song, and very high quality saw blade, which I'll be installing on that a little later. I have a couple of routers, a scroll saw, just a wide variety of stuff, not to mention all my carving equipment that I have too. So we're going to get started on this project. Okay, I want to get started on my workbench. I'm going to make it about 6 foot long, 34 3/4 inches tall, 2 foot deep. So those will be the dimensions I'm going to be working with. I want to have a lower shelf and may possibly put some little side shelves on it. I want to have storage underneath to put all my extra tools, hand tools and stuff on, pieces of wood, paints, whatever I need to put in there. And, I want to make it durable. I'm going to be using 1/2 inch plywood for the top. I'm going to use 2 1/2 inch sheets, and I'm going to glue them and screw them together, and just standard 2x4s for the legs, and a ODS or OSD compressed board for the bottom shelf, and probably the shelving for the storage area underneath. It won't be used for the top. I may add a piece of laminate 1/4 inch on the top, but that'll be towards the end. Okay, let's get started. First thing I want to do is cut my pieces of plywood down to 6 feet to make them a little easier to handle. And I also need to, on this old radial arm saw, it does not have a wood base on it, or wood cutting surface, so I'm going to use part of that plywood and the OSD as that cutting surface. Okay, let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to measure this piece out to 72 inches. So I've got 72 inches right there, and I'm going to use my square to get a nice straight cut right at 72. Or at least a straight measurement for right now. Okay, let's do the other side here. We'll measure it right at 72. I've got it measured and clamped. So this will act as a jig or guide for my circular saw. Make sure you always are careful with your tools that you don't cut your cord or yourself. Just practice good shot safety. All right, I've got it cut to 72. And I'll just use this as my template for the rest of the board cuts. Okay, I'm going to now cut my legs for the bench. I'm going to make them 33 1/4 inches long each. I'm going to need 4 of them, of course. And then after I get those lengths cut, I'm going to cut the cross beams for the bench, both top and bottom, and cut out some of the smaller boards that I need for shelf support, in between runs, the whole 9 yards. So we'll start with 4 33 1/4 inch legs at this time. That's better. See if we can get that lined up in that hole there. Alright, I got one cut, so I'm going to go ahead and continue and cut the rest of the legs, and I'll do that off of video. Hey, thanks. Off camera I did a little more cutting of boards. I cut my 2 main support boards under the where the tabletop's going to go, and I cut those at 64 inches. And I cut the side supports at 20 inches. I want, with the thing being 24 inches wide and 72 inches long, I want some overhang. So if I have to put clamps on there to clamp boards in place, I can do that easily from any position on the table. I plan on putting a lip around the outside of it. In the meantime, if you take a look here, you'll see that I put some pocket holes. I used a pocket hole jig, and I put some pocket holes into the edges of the 2x4, and that's how I'm going to put the thing together and assemble at least the top part. I'll probably put pocket holes somewhere else. I may use some rabbits, may use some dados. We'll see. Right now, that's what I'm going to do. So I've got the pocket hole screw shot on one side. I'm going to continue on off camera and finish it up, and we'll take a look at it here in just a few minutes. Well, I went ahead and I drilled some pilot holes into the top of the legs, and this is how I'm going to fasten them to the frame where the tabletop will set. So I'm going to go ahead and put them on there, fasten them on down, and get that all taken care of. All right, got that clamped. I want to check the square. All right, folks, I've kind of roughly assembled part of the frame. I've got a lot more that I want to do this, but I'm ending for today, and I'll continue on tomorrow. Right now, I'll walk over here and point out what I've done. Of course, here's the cross beams, and here is one of the legs. Here's another leg, and I put support in the bottom. I shot this leg with 3 screws, countersunk, and of course, on the outside frame, I used pocket hole jig, and that way you don't see any screws on the outside on that. I did the same down here. I put a small support board in the bottom, you know, for extra support on the legs a little further down. What I'm going to be doing tomorrow, I'm going to be adding an inner shelf through here. I'm going to put little shelves on the inside here, maybe some on the other there. Put some wood in the back. Of course, I'm going to put my top on top of here, and I'll fasten that in. Then I'll put some outside edging on it for protection, either that or, oh yeah, I will. I'll put that on, it'll round out the edges. And then I'll put a wider base. I'll put the wider base on, of course, before I put the top part on. I want a wider base for it to set, and I'm going to have it, you know, kind of set on legs slightly. I know that's going to change my height a little bit with the table saw over here, but I still think I'll have room for that. And it's not critical that I work with that table saw. I mean, I can just, you know, if it's a little higher or lower, that's okay. You know, I'll get to work one way or another. But I want it to work for me more than I want it to work for working with that table saw. Well, this is all for today. I should be able to do some tomorrow. It's supposed to be pretty cold tomorrow, so tomorrow might actually be 2 days from now. But we'll see. I still have steam coming from my mouth as I'm talking here, so it's pretty chilly out here in the garage. And you know, I want to keep the feeling in my fingers while I'm doing this stuff, so I don't make any mistakes and lose them. So we're coming along nice and strong. It looks fairly sturdy right there. That's sturdier than the ones I've seen at some of the home improvement stores that I've seen for around $60, $70. I mean, just wiggle it like that. It doesn't wiggle. So that's all for right now, and we'll pick it up and we'll start with putting the shelving in tomorrow. Well, I'm back again, and I've done a little off-camera work, but I'm going to show you what I did so we can get things going. On my bench, I'm going to be using 2x4s on the bottom to support the lower shelf. And what I did was I went and put a rabbet. You look here on the edges of these 2x4s. So the plywood will set right into there. I did it on those, and I did it on the little side pieces that I have over there. So those are going to go down the bottom of the bench. As you can see, I used my router, and it's actually sitting on top of the bench, which is all the perfect height. So to give you an idea of what I did with this router, I put a little straight bit in there, and I set it at the depth that I wanted. Then I put the rip fence behind it, and I just slid the 2x4 across as this thing was running. So this is the small side piece of 2x4 with a rabbet on it. And I'm going to I put it in so that I put it in so that I can have the plywood set in this way instead of having, you know, have it set this way instead of this way. So basically what I did for the rabbit was I pushed it. The bit would go in just like that. Okay, to give you a little better idea of what I was doing, I'll just go ahead and take a scrap piece and run it through here so that you can get an idea of what I've been doing with this stuff. Okay, we'll fire up the router, let it get nice and warm, up to full speed first, because it's still cold out here. Okay, you can see how that routed the rabbit for me there. That's one wascally wabbit. Okay, I'm going to attach the supports for the shelf onto the bench. And I'm going to use the pocket hole jig to do that with. I figure that'll make it nice and strong. And then I'll cut my piece of OSD to fit into there. And that'll be the lower shelf, and I'll attach that down with screws after I'm done. And I'll show you some of that as I'm going along. All right, I've got my end piece here, and I've got the pocket hole jig set so that I'll be able to put one on this side, then I'm going to slide it over a little bit. I'm not going to use the two right next to each other. I'll use the left one, then I'll go to the right one. You can see the pocket holes there. I'm going to do that to this side. And I'm going to repeat this process to all of the 2x4s. And I'm going to do that off camera. Just want to give you an idea of how I'm doing that right now. I now have the lower shelf put in. Got them all pocket screwed in. And the inner dimension that I'm shooting for is 14 7/8 by 58. So I'm going to cut this OSD that I have up here to that dimension. Then we're going to have to take a jigsaw and cut the little corners out so that it'll fit in nice and smooth. Then I'll shoot some screws to hold it in place. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll continue on from there. I ripped this down to 14 7/8 on the table saw, and I've marked the corners where I'm going to take it out with a jigsaw. I'm going to now do a test fit to see how this fits. Okay. Good. That did it. I was just a little long. That's good, that did it. I was just about 1/8 of an inch too long, and I wasn't fitting down in there properly. So now I'm going to take some screws, shoot it, and get it all fastened in. Now for a quick update. I've got the bottom in, and I installed some sides. I installed the back, that's put in there. So if you take a look here, you'll see I've got the OSD lining the back and the sides and the bottom. So that's where tool storage, and I may add some more shelving in there. I've put extended legs on the bottom for stability. This thing doesn't wiggle at all now. It's pretty heavy too. And I went and I chamfered the edges. Makes it look nicer too. I know it's just a rough bench, but yeah, might as well look good if you can do it. Okay, camera, focus. Still pretty cold out here, and I don't think the camera's working as good as it can. So, I've done a lot of this off video, but I will write it up in the post so you'll know everything that I've done, and I'll give you all the dimensions, parts, the whole 9 yards of what it took to build this thing. I think the next thing I'm going to do is either put a shelf split in there, which I could probably do that anytime. I may just put boxes in there, but I'm going to go ahead and put the top on it, and then I'm going to call it a day. And I think that should be enough for this beauty, and it's functional. As soon as I get that top on there, it'll be totally functional. Okay, I will talk a little later. Well, I would say it's about 98% finished. I'm going to eventually add some shelving down here, but right now, if you look at it this way, and I just toss stuff in there, it's done. I'm going to put some little shelves on the inside of the 2x4s over here. So that's part of the other shelving I need to complete, but I'm not going to do that today. I put hardboard on top. I've got 2 layers of CDX plywood, 1/2 inch, so it gives me 1 inch of plywood. Then I put 2 3/4 inch pieces of hardboard on top, so it's got a very nice hardboard surface, nice and slick and smooth. And if that hardboard gets all tore up, I've got them separated as far as the way they're attached. So I attached the plywood first to make sure it was secure, and then I attached the hardboard on top of the plywood, so that I could, when it gets damaged, which eventually it will, I mean, that's what it's there for, I can replace it instead of having to replace the plywood, which is a lot more expensive each time. So then I went ahead and put a 1x4. Now this 1x4 I got from out of the cull lumber that they have up at Home Depot, so I got 70% off of it. It's a little warped, but not bad. I mean, for what I want to use this for, it's going to be just fine. And I've got plenty of room to get my clamps underneath here to clamp in nice and tight. And I'm going to leave the board off the back on purpose, just so for clamping and other things that I want to do. This just makes it look nicer and gives me a little more of a surface. If I want to screw into it, beat on it, whatever, I mean, it's cheap wood. So this thing is dimensions. It should be as tall as my table saw over there. And I will double check that to see. It might be a smidge taller because I added a little bit more. All right, Minister table saw. .34½, and this one's just about 34½. I got it. I got it to where I wanted. Okay. Well, folks, this is the first in a long series of videos that I'm going to put on my website, howtoscotty.com. I'm also going to have it on my Facebook page. I'm going to have it on YouTube. I'm going to have different plans and things available. This one, I'm going to give you all the instructions. Of course, you'll have this video to look at, and I'll give you written instructions on what I did, along with a parts list, so you can make your own or any variation of that. I mean, this one is sturdy. It is heavy. I could probably put a frickin' car engine on top of this thing, and it would work just fine. So I built myself something that can be used for a lot of different things. And with this hardboard on here, not only for the woodworking, but I could do mechanics work, whatever I want to on top of this thing. I mean, I could even haul this thing outside and leave it as an outside bench if I sealed it properly. But for right now, this is perfect for in here. So if you have any questions of what I've done, I know I kind of did some stuff offline, but a lot of that's just repetitive sawing and stuff. I will put that down in a text, little written section in the blog post for you, so you'll know what's going on. And I want to thank you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment or email me at info@howtoscotty.com, and we'll go from there. Well, in my next project I'm going to be making, you'll see when I put it up on my blog. I've got probably about 15 different projects that I'm going to work on. Even just give you an idea, when I was at Home Depot this morning picking up my hardboard to put on top of this, I went by their coal section. I always love to go to the coal section. Some of the wood's really crap, but some of it's pretty decent. And here's going to be one of my next projects down here. Those are, I believe, 10-foot, they look like 1x8s, 1x8 cedar. So I've got some projects on, bird feeders, bird houses, planters, all kinds of different stuff, and the cedar will come in handy for working with that. That cedar is really good for the outdoors. All right, folks. Finally saying goodbye. This is Scott from How To Scotty. You have a wonderful day. Hope you make lots of fun projects. Take it easy now.